I'm Ashley,
And welcome to
two therapists and a cocktail, keeping it real.
Yes, ma'am. How are you today, girl?
I am doing good. It is officially Black History Month, and
Yes,
I am excited about
me
tonight's
too.
podcast. We even got on
Me
our
too.
Black History shirts. What you got? What you got?
Girl, mine says black love and black joy. I love it. What does yours say?
Yes. Mine says generational curse breaker. Because
Yes,
that's what we
ma'am.
do. We break the curses, the
Yes. And break
cycles.
them. And break it. And break it. So I heard from some of our guests last time that they really like when we talk about what our drinks are. So what you sipping on tonight, girl?
Ooh, so girl, I just had me a nice, fine red wine tonight. That's what I got. What you got?
Very classic, very classic. I'm drinking a blueberry, I think lemonade, some kind of mocktail mix, but it is delicious, girl.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
See, we
But you know
cater
what's
to
even
everyone.
we do. And you know what's even more delicious? What we gonna get into tonight.
Ooh, yep. So
Because
delicious.
I love blackness, and more than that, I love me some black men. And I think we should bring them into
Yes.
the conversation tonight. What you think?
Yes, we having a great intimate conversation with black men tonight, y'all.
Yes.
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 I love it. I love it. Hello. Hello,
Yes.
black men. How are y'all?
Doing
Y'all
great,
nervous?
doing great.
Oh, good.
Doing good. It's an amazing evening.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
so Andrea, who we got tonight? Who do we have tonight?
Well, who wants to go first to introduce themselves?
I'll go. I ain't got no problem with it. So my name is Nevin Chanette. I do quite a bit. Own an insurance agency. I own a franchise gym, and now I'm doing commercial real estate. And I also have a mentorship for entrepreneurship. So
Come on, black man.
All
I'm busy.
When
right.
Right.
I just wanted your name. I didn't know you were doing
All right.
resumes, but I
All
will
right.
take it, black man. Okay?
Yes.
And you, sir.
I'm gonna keep it simple. My name is John Allen, and I live in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
All
Keeping
right,
it real
John
simple.
Allen.
I like it
That's
Yes.
clear,
it. That's
concise.
it.
I feel for it. So, Ashley, since we have these black men here with us tonight, what should we ask them? What do you think is on? Oh, you know what? Before we get into that, what
Yeah.
is everybody else drinking tonight?
Yeah. What y'all got?
What you got in your cups and your glasses?
Well, since you wanted to, when I took a sip, I felt like you were calling me out.
I
It's,
was. That's a sexy drink.
I'm just gonna call this. It's called a Suzy Q. It's just a little apple and strawberry mix of something, and you just make it your
Okay,
own. That's it.
okay,
Okay.
that's
Looks
cute.
good, John Allen.
Little Susie Q. Never,
I'm
what you
gonna
got
keep
in
it
your
simple.
cup, partner?
It's water because it's been a long day. It's water.
Water. Is that the Lord's water, or is that another kind
It
of
is the
water?
Lord's water
Okay.
before the party, and then he. It's
Pre-wedding,
it's it's
right? Right.
it's, it's the water.
Noted. Noted. Well, Ashley, what are we gonna ask these black men about tonight?
Well, before we start asking questions, I think this needs to be said. You know, this platform is for us to talk about our truths and our opinions, as therapists. But I think it's important to hear the opinions of other people, and especially men. I feel like men don't get a chance all the time to share their opinions and their truths. And so tonight we are going to do that. We are going to ask some questions and get into it and keep it real as we always do. So
I love it.
tonight, our first question is, what are your experiences being a man, but most importantly, being a black man in society? What is that like?
Mm. Mm.
And anybody could go first.
And y'all keep it real with us because we always keep it real in this. And this is a safe
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, John Allen, you want to go first? Because that's a lot to unpack, as the therapists tend to say.
That is a lot to unpack. What is it like to be a man, more specifically a black man in society? I'd say it's wearing several hats and being very aware of the perceived level of comfort that I am presenting to whatever eyes are on me. That's the simple answer. To the latter, it's because you have to be a strong black man. I'm married, and I have to be a strong black man for my wife and my child, but I also have to be a strong black man for myself. But in that strength and in my confidence, I have to make sure that I don't have to make sure, but I have to be aware of how threatening I may be perceived, or how dangerous I may be perceived, or how arrogant I may be perceived, or even on the opposite end, in strength, there's strength and vulnerability, but in that, how weak that makes me look, or how dumb that makes me look. All of these different perceptions can be something that, that those are things that I keep in mind when it comes to what society looks at. And then how realistic is it? The fact that I worked at a school where, most of the population of the school was also black, yet one of the other teachers there was very surprised when she heard me speaking, not, anything else, around anyone else, and the first thing she says is, "Oh wow, you really are white bread." And I was really confused by that for a second. I was like, "What do you mean by white bread?" And when she explained it, it was just I was taken aback. I'd forgotten what the first thing I said was about how society may view us, or what it's like to be a black man in society. Oh, wearing several hats, because it depends. Code switching is a real thing, and whether sometimes you do it and you're doing it, and sometimes you don't know that you're doing it. But it's important to know the difference, and find that middle ground of who you really are and what you're comfortable with. And only recently, within the past decade or so, have I figured out that code switching does not compromise my character or my personality. Just as sure as if I were to go to, let's say, if I were to travel to the northern region of France, there's a different dialect there than in the southern region. There's a different English on the East Coast than there is on the West Coast of the United States. There are like 20 different Englishes in England. So the fact that I'm speaking one dialect with one group of people and another dialect with another group of people does not necessarily mean that I am two different people. It's just that I could very well be speaking two different languages for two different people. And that doesn't make me two-faced, which is something that could be seen as, or fake, insincere, any of that. And I think, that's what it's like. That's how I look at it, as being a black man in America. That's the surface of it. That's not even the tip of the iceberg. I just kind of see the mist. Nevin?
Well, thank you for sharing, John Allen. I have some questions, but I really want Nevin to say his piece, and then we'll get into it.
Well, I second everything John Allen said, in an exaggerated fashion. To be a black man in America, There's a lot of moving pieces to that. And I don't think we actually discuss it very often. I think I'm blessed because me and my friend group, we discuss it all the time, at length. But there are literally layers to it that nobody understands but us. And it's not welcome conversation in a lot of spaces for anyone but us, among us, between us, because we understand what we go through. So I definitely recommend black men having a group of black men to talk to. But that being said, yeah, I can just kind of elaborate on everything John Allen said. It's having an expectation of strength that you have to carry all the time. There is no vulnerability, although you're still a human. So you got to figure out how to be a human, although the expectation is that you have to be Hercules. And you have to live up to that whether you want to or not. And there's consequences if you don't. Also, you are a threat to the fair-skinned community, and a lot of other groups for that matter, just not even in that same demographic. People just see you as dangerous black man. God forbid they see you as big, dangerous black man. That's a whole different story, because me personally, certified personal trainer, I have one or two muscles, changes the whole narrative. It's a whole different ball game if you look non-threatening and the only thing that you have as a weapon is your skin color. Completely different when someone sees you and your skin color is a threat, and then you also look physically intimidating to the point that, oh, you could do damage to me because I'm afraid of you anyway. So you really have to be careful to not intimidate anybody, not frighten anyone, always be strong, keep your composure even when there's literally most circumstances no valid reason for you to be composed, because then you play into the stereotype of angry black person, which is really a whole gaslight scenario, but won't get into that. There's just a lot of circumstances under which you have to stand, and to be quite frank, they're pretty impossible. That's what you learn as a black man pretty early on. There is no balance. In order to do any of the, in case you haven't noticed, in order to do any of the two things I just said, it literally is impossible. It's like, hey, we need you to learn how to fly, and we also need you to learn how to tunnel at the same time. We need you to learn how to be a brain surgeon, but no one wants you to be too educated. It's like at every turn, there's some kind of contradiction that goes along with an expectation that is had of you. We know you're dangerous. Okay, well, if you are non-threatening, then you look kind of out of place. And then people feel that they can walk over you. Well, if you stand up for yourself, now you're a stereotype. Now you're dangerous. Now we're afraid of you. And then there's different levels to that, because then you got when you're in Target or Walmart, you got different groups of people who you see there. Then you've got being in your friend groups, whole different scenarios, a whole different hat that you wear, a whole different circumstance. When it comes to dating and relationships, whole different set of hats you have to wear. And then, plot twist, there are circumstances where all of these roles and responsibilities overlap with one another that you have to figure out what's my balance so that I don't lose my frame. Frame being who I really am and what I have to live up to, but yet who I choose to be at the same time. That is a very important thing that if you are a conscious person and also a lucky person, you learn in time, but that's something that most young black men have no idea about. It's not really a thing. And something I learned, something that John Allen touched on, something that I learned in the past 5-10 years since I've been in so many different circumstances. I've been in corporate boardrooms. I've been in everything. I've done negotiations. I've done all kinds of stuff, to where I was, as my mother would say, the prettiest thing in the room. And she taught me that when I was little, so that I wouldn't be aware of the fact that I was out of place in most of the situations I was in, because I'm from a small town. So a small town in the South, read between the lines as you choose. Yes, it's just as bad as you think. And no one apologizes for it because it's normal. Completely normal. So it's not There's no funk to be raised by it. So, that being said, I learned the hard way exactly what John Allen said, which is code switching is not being fake. It's not being white. You're not selling yourself out, and it is exactly who you are. Because I learned that being able to code switch effortlessly is actually a sign of intelligence and a superpower, because what it shows is that you are intelligent enough to know how to achieve whatever it is you see fit in whatever environment you see yourself in. It's actually a superpower and a blessing, because a lot of people really struggle with it. I've got one of my friends. He works for a very, very popular restaurant chain that is everywhere in the South. And he's an amazing worker. He makes these people tons of money. And he was working there for, I think, 15 years, something like that. And he realized he had hit the glass ceiling. And at one point he approached me, me being college educated. He's college educated as well, but we're different. He's still rough around the edges, and he's okay with that. Me personally, I code switch and flip flop, and doesn't faze me at all. And he came to me one day and he said, man, somebody came to me one day. I asked the lady in HR, and I said, why is it that you think I have been trying to get hired at corporate for so long and I can't? And he said, she told me, he was confused. He said, she told me that I just didn't have the refinement that was necessary for corporate. And he asked me, he says, and I honestly and truthfully don't think it was an honest question. I think he really was trying to confirm. He was like, what you think she meant by that, dog? And I had to tell him the truth, the God honest truth. I said, hey, man, that was her trying to put a lackluster effort into being politically correct and just tell you was too hood for corporate. That's it. That's what that means. Yes, you make them plenty of money. Yes, you make them look great. Yes, they'll give you all the bonuses you want. They'll throw money at you because you make them money. So they don't have any problem giving you money. But as soon as it comes time for them to give you a position that now shows that you reflect the company, you a little too black. We don't want none of that. So keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate you. But stay down now. So, yeah, anyway, I didn't mean to monopolize the conversation, but that is my 2 cents added to what John Allen said, because I echo all of that. There's a lot to that, but John Allen did a great job, and I wanted to add to it. So,
I think what's interesting about both of you all sharing out is you keep touching on this expectation, and both of you use that same language. Like, there's expectations like from this role and from this role and from this role. What do you feel like the root of that expectation is? Is that something that you all have seen in your families, and you're trying to meet the expectations of, like, let's say, role models? Is it something that you believe society wants from you? And even, like, when you're thinking about, like, what society wants from you, where are you even getting that notion from? Like, is it in the media? Is it because that's just what has been grinded into you from, like, day one? Like, are we talking about, like, from the playground, like, oh, you're supposed to be tough, like, you're not supposed to show your feelings? Like, tell me more about, like, the root of all of that.
I can speak on me personally, and I try to speak personally because I don't like speaking for other people, because my journey is different. But I'm very aware of mine. My dad did a great job raising me. He's a very, very, very hard man, but I understand why he was. It was in my later years that I realized the reason my dad was so hard on me is because he knows the world is going to be hard on me. And he understands that if I'm soft on him, the world is going to be hard on him. So I'm doing an injustice to him by giving him a false expectation. because the world is going to try to break him. So I can kind of do him a favor by trying to break him first. So then he's used to the feeling of being broken and he can take the pressure. Unfortunately, it's a very, very vicious situation. But, in case you can't tell, it worked. I hate it, but it worked. I hate it, but it worked. I wouldn't be where I am now if it weren't for that. So my pressure to succeed and strive comes from, for the most part, the expectation that as a black man, I'm dumb, stupid, and dangerous. I know that is the expectation that society puts on me. No one expects anything from me. So my biggest motivation in most circumstances is to defy stereotypes, expectations, and exceed everything needed of me. That is a thing that gives me personal gratification that I cannot explain to you. For instance, I don't smoke. I don't smoke because people assume that because I'm black, of course I smoke. Therefore, I don't. People expect me to talk a specific way. So here's a plot twist. I don't. People expect me to have a job doing this and doing that. I decide I want my time, I want my freedom, so I'm going to create businesses, and that's the life I want to live because it gives me freedom, and then nobody expects that from me. I like being the shattering. I like to hear the glass shatter when people think a certain way of me, and then it's completely different. Because people see me, they speak to me a certain way, yada, yada, yada. And I love that feeling of being better than what people expect of me. And that translates into my relationships. That translates into my businesses, my finances, the way I carry myself, the way I dress, the way I talk, everything. Everything. Provide, protect, be intelligent, never hinder. So I think that's most of mine. John Allen, we got to get you now.
Wow. I'd say that I come from the opposite end of that spectrum. I think my parents raised me not in a hard way, but kind of in a way that gave. I don't even know if it was them, if it was the nature or the nurture, but I grew up with this real intense voice of self-advocacy. So if my parents ever told me one thing, I would question it. Sometimes it got me in trouble. A lot of times it got me in trouble. And the same thing would happen with other types of authority, whether it's adults at church or teachers at school or even, police officers, because I grew up with this, I'm just going to call it this Pollyanna kind of view of the world for the longest time. I mean, even into my first few years of undergrad, I remember one guy got arrested for having a firearm on campus and in the dorms, which of course he shouldn't have had. And they walked him out of the building, cuffed up, although he planned on doing nothing with it. That they walked him out cuffed up and, making a huge scene of the whole thing. So then I asked one of the officers, who happened to be white, and the guy was black. I asked him, like, hey, why did you take him out in cuffs? Couldn't you have done that outside? He's like, well, no, we could have just skipped him out there with lollipops and singing with butterflies. Or he had said something like that. He was being sarcastic, and I was just like thinking to myself, well, that's just incredibly disrespectful. That's not even the way that I approached you. Why would you do something like that? Looking back, I'm like, oh, that's because he doesn't, whether he knows it or not, he was not viewing me as somebody who was just asking a question about the way that he conducted himself. He was just responding to me in the way of, how dare you ask me anything about the way that I'm doing something, because you don't have the right. Which goes back to the expectation. I viewed expectations more from just growing up and being a man. and not growing up and being a black man. I think I lived a lot of my life before I even truly acknowledged the fact that other people see me as a black man and not just a man. And those are two different things, because yes, you do have to, a man has to be strong, but a black man has to make sure he is not dangerous in his strength, like we were saying before, Nevin. So that's a part of that expectation, and I've been the only black person in many of the experiences of my life, and only recently has it been brought to my attention that I was the only black person in that room, and before then and sometimes even now I'll forget, like, oh wait, I am different. So I have to make sure that I'm watching how I respond to what's said by, the comedian that's on stage, or the pastor that's in the pulpit, or the principal that's on their stage, or the other person that's in the podcast. These are things that I would not have thought of before. So I think the expectation that I've set for myself is to be tempered and calculated, which is really hard for me, because it's a test of, once again, your sincerity and your genuineness, because I have to be calculated. I can't always laugh as loud as I want to, and I can't say, no, you're wrong. I have to find the more eloquent way of saying those types of things, and then I have to find a more, I hate this word for many reasons, civilized way of laughing at something that I find funny in a larger group, and if I am having a problem with, let's say, a server in a restaurant, or a police officer on the street, or or a pastor, which I have had a problem with, I have to be 10 times more calculated with the words that I use. I have to have a Rolodex of references ready in my brain for every single comment that he or she says in relation to what I am going to say, in order to make sure that what I'm saying comes across as clear, direct, without being dangerous, loud, or ignorant. Because one person could say, no, what you're saying is dumb. One non-black person can say, what you're saying is dumb. And then I say that in the very same tone, and then I am the one that is insulting them. And because I just said it was dumb, I don't have the intellect to explain why. It's just the fact that you decided to say dumb and not any other word that is equivalent to that same 4-letter word.
Just listening to the both of you gentlemen, you guys are talking about, there's a lot of expectation, there's a lot of, I have to be this certain way, there's a lot of, I just have to be strong. And the word that comes to mind is heavy. I feel this heaviness. It's like you guys are constantly, there's always something on top of you. And then you have to add, oh, I gotta be strong. I gotta be strong. There ain't nothing else but just being strong. So I guess my question for the both of you is, do you ever break? You're human. You're not a robot. Do you ever break? Do you ever give yourself a moment?
Yes. I'll say it. Yeah, I break, Sometimes it is with my wife. Sometimes it's by myself, and the truth is, I don't know. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, okay? Some people identify that as Christian, and I would say that. But of course, that comes with so many negative connotations nowadays. But I definitely believe in Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. And I do not understand how someone else that is a black man, could live life without that faith that I have. Because what I have lived and learned is that when I am weak, that is when He is strong. And that is what makes it okay for me to have weakness, and to be weak and to break. Because the truth is, I'm not breaking. I'm just bending so far that I can start to see those cracks. But once I break, I am no longer of use to anyone, including myself. And I'm not broken. So I would say, yeah, I have broken. I do break. And that is okay because I am human, and that comes with the integrity of life. The fact that it does. I have to get to this point where it doesn't matter what society says about what I am or who I am. It's a weird balance. It's a weird dance, but I've got to get there. Otherwise, things like people like Martin Luther King Jr. would not exist. Writings by W.E.B. Du Bois would not exist because that was unacceptable. That was not something that was not accepted by society for them to do and to say. And it's not as grand of a scale as that, but it is grand in my scheme, in my life, in my family, in my circle, to be that true, to say, you know what, I am weak. And I think that Nevin can probably agree to this in the gym. If you try to lift all those weights by yourself, you're going to come to a place where you cannot repair yourself. And you might say, I need help. You need a spotter. You need somebody to spot you. And that's what needs to happen. You can't admit that you need a spot unless you admit I'm not strong enough. And that's what a spot's there for. And I guess that's just what we need in life. We need our emotional, our spiritual spots as well.
Okay. Yeah. John Allen, I agree with everything you said. So I'll tell you, there have been circumstances and situations where I felt as though I was breaking, but the thing is, I've been in a lot of situations where I learned what my limits really are. And I feel like most of those situations I came to specifically because God was showing me, hey, here's how I built you. Because there's nothing you can't take. These are reinforcement exercises along the way. So even in the circumstances where I felt like I really was just going to completely snap and fall apart, plot twist, I never did. I felt like I did for a little while, but it was never, I realized it was more psychological than anything. It's like, hey, I'm questioning myself. And a lot of times, I don't know if all your viewers even know this, but a lot of times just have an imposter syndrome. I realize I struggle with that all the time. Like the rooms I find myself in, the conversations I'm having, the people I'm talking to, I'm constantly saying, dude, you really think you can handle this? As if it's not something I do all the time. You go sit in the room, you jump on a Zoom call, everybody in the call, nobody looks like you in the call. Everybody's net worth is multi-millions, and everybody's tuned in to what you have to say. And of course, that little voice in the back of your mind says, you sure you can do this? That's a breaking moment, because that's a self-sabotage moment. But I know it's not real. I do this. I'm at that point, I completely cast aside, and something I've learned in my time, I actually gain strength from the fact that these people have a really negative expectation of me. Because a lot of times you can see it. You can see it in the posture. You can see it in the body language, the facial expressions. You can see it. Yes, I live in a small town in the South. However, this is not a South problem. This is an American problem. And it's not just America, because there's plenty of countries you go to and it's the same thing. If you go to China, oh my God, you've completely lost your mind. If you thought it was bad in the South, don't go there. They got completely different motivations, but I promise you it's the worst. The violence might not be worse. The physical consequences, nowhere near the same. But as far as like the way you'll be treated, talked to, things of that sort, like there's plenty of countries where black people aren't even respected. Like period. Like just don't even go. There's no reason to, unless you don't know what you're doing. Anyway, to fast forward, to rewind, I have taught myself, and this may have been something that started, full disclosure, this might be something that started as a coping mechanism, a really bad one, but it has brought me a significant amount of joy. And that is, I find pleasure in succeeding in impossible circumstances. I find pleasure in succeeding where everyone thinks I'm going to fail and or not be sufficient enough. That is such a rush for me. It's a high for me. When I know, again, same thing I said before, when I end up shattering expectations, I get a sense of self-gratitude that is really hard to explain. But I genuinely think I developed that when I was much younger because of the pain of the expectations that were put upon me. Like, of course, I'm going to say something and I don't even know if it's politically correct for the podcast, but you know that little nigga boy is dumb as hell. What you expect from him? Well, you know, he just like Tyrone and Brandon and all the rest of them. He just like Tyree. He just like all the rest of them. The problem is, I was never like all the rest of them. Never. The irony is, even as a small child, and this is something going back to something John Ellen said, and Ashley can actually attest to this because me and her have talked about it time and time again. As a small child, and I promise I do not mean this from a place of arrogance because it's going to sound like it, but she can attest to like how this came about and something I realized. I got in a circumstance where somebody told me, hey, you learned really quick that you did not jive with the rest of the kids, and you realized really quick you were smarter than other kids and smarter than the people who were giving you directions as a kid. So it made it really hard for you to listen to those people because you had a different expectation of yourself. It was hard for you to listen to adults because you realized they didn't know what you knew. Not from a standpoint of arrogance, you just understood as a child. And I was like, oh, that explains a lot. Okay, alrighty then. That's actually probably using that logic, I'm assuming, when I was young, and it just really hurt me so badly when I realized what it meant to be black in America. It was really painful. My mom and dad, they tried to go forever and never have the talk. Then my mom and dad, they sheltered me for a long time. As a kid, I really thought, well, I'm a kid, they're kids, the world is okay. And it wasn't. It was never okay. My parents did a really good job of making it look okay, though. So kudos to them. But I remember what happened in my local. I don't want to monopolize too much time. Y'all mind if I tell y'all a little quick story about how my childhood got shattered? Sure. My innocence went down the toilet. I was in an Ashley Surgery store before. Me and my mom, I probably was about 4. Me and my mom were in Dairy Queen, and we were in the back of the line, you know, waiting to get to the cash register. There was a young white guy who was running the cash register. There's probably 4 families in front of us. Mom was holding my hand. I'm little. And the guy in front, the first family they went, the second family went. When it got to the family in front of us, there's, you know, by default, people behind us. And the family in front of us went, you know, of course, I'm gassed up, you know, ice cream. I'm vibing. And when we stepped up to the cash register, we stepped up, and my mom looked down and she said, hey, what you want, baby? And the guy at the cash register, he looked at my mom, he looked at me, and then he leaned to the side and said, next customer. Now, I'm a kid. My parents did an amazing job not letting me know that I was black. My mom did tell me I was the prettiest thing in the room. She told me that from the time I was old enough to understand English. But I didn't really understood what that meant. I was just like, my mom likes me because she's my mom. It's okay. Because I was a kid. This was the incident when we got in the car because, what's the best way of putting this? My mom ain't the one, and she definitely ain't the two, okay? You don't do that to my mother because she don't play that. Okay. But my mom always went out of her way to keep her composure in front of her baby. And she still does it to this day. We got in the car. Now, my mom was hot. I'm talking about 38 smoking barrel fired bullet hot. We got out of line. We went and got in the car. I'm frustrated. I'm mad. I want my ice cream. What's the problem? So now my mom's, pulling me. We head out the store. I don't understand why we weren't able to go in line. I don't understand why we're leaving. I don't understand why that guy looked over us. I don't understand why I'm not getting ice cream. There's problems here that don't fit with reality. So when we got in the car, I knew something was wrong, so I was quiet. I didn't say nothing because I kind of felt like I did something wrong, like I was in trouble. Because I knew my mom was hot. She didn't say nothing. She didn't have to. She was that hot. You could feel it radiating off her. Her energy was bad, like real bad. So we got in the car, sitting there, ain't gonna say nothing. And after a while, I couldn't hold it no more. I was just like, Mama, why did that dude want them people to go in front of us? And she took a deep breath. And she just sat there and held the steering wheel for a second. And she said, baby, he did that because we black. And mind you, I know what black means because I'm not dumb. I'm a child, but I'm not dumb. I'm like, yeah, but why couldn't we get ice cream? Because that doesn't make sense. We're black. He treated us like that, and I can't have ice cream. Them two things don't make sense. Yes, I'm black, and I want ice cream. What's the problem? So that's the logic in my child mind. And then I told my mother, she was like, yeah, he did that because we're black, baby. And I was like, well, so why would he do that? And she said, in this world, you're going to learn that people are going to treat you differently because you're black. Most of the time, they're going to treat you worse than they would treat other people because you're black. You have to be okay with that, and you have to learn to live with it. It's not fair, it's not okay, and it is normal. And in my mind, I'm sitting there and I can tell my mom wants to cry. You got to understand, she's pissed. But not only is she mad because you overlooked me and my child in Dairy Queen, not only did you push me to a limit where I had to catch my composure to not knock your ass out and slap all this shit off this counter, but on top of that, now you forced me to have to explain to my child that he's seen as less than a person in this world. And I was not prepared to do that today. So then my line of inquiry continued. And I was like, well, why can't I have ice cream? And my mom said, well, baby, I'm not going to let anybody disrespect us like that. And you should never let anyone disrespect you like that either. You're a black man. And if somebody can't treat you properly, you either leave the situation or you take action. I never forget. That's exactly what my mother said. You leave the situation or you take action. So, I didn't want to ask any more questions. I was very confused. And that was the day my childhood died. So, yeah.
I hope you didn't go back to Dairy Queen.
Oh, I went to Dairy Queen last week.
Well, hello, Blizzards.
But Dairy Queen is owned by an Indian dude now. Dairy Queen is owned by an Indian dude now.
Listen, black man, I was with you, but I was like, I don't know if I can give up blizzards in the name of Nevin.
Listen, that strawberry cheesecake, I'm trying to tell you.
But you
It
know
get you
what?
right.
You know what? It's really unfortunate, Nevin, that at that age you had to learn that so quick. It.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the other stories that are
Oh, I
just as
got plenty.
worse. That is just
Oh,
as
I got
worse as
plenty.
that. You know.
I
And
can tell you one person from me, and I can only imagine what other people got.
and you know what? This is why, y'all, mental health is so important. Because as a people, we're not just going through, oh, somebody acting like a jerk at the job, or I'm stressed out because my kid ain't doing what they need to do. There's racism too. It's racism too. And we have to deal with that. So imagine
Yeah.
as a mom, you just trying to have a wonderful day with your son.
Just a good Saturday.
A good Saturday. And then you have to explain to him that in the eyes of these other people, he's not as valuable. To get some darn ice cream. Are you kidding
Who
me?
made you the racial gatekeeper of ice cream, bro? What? I just want a strawberry milkshake. It ain't that serious, bro. I promise. I am not. What was it in life? I just want one of these nigga ice creams. That's all. Yeah, what would it take to turn one of these white milkshakes into nigga milkshake? What would it take? Now, how about I turn you into a nigga milkshake? Okay. Like, when I saw that movie as an adult, that's literally what I thought. I was just like, yeah, it wasn't that funny when it happened to me. It wasn't that funny.
Is
Wasn't that
racism
funny?
ever funny? I don't think so.
Nah. You can find humor in it, but it's not funny in and of itself. That's you finding the glory in the situation so that it doesn't ruin your time.
That's very real. So I'm glad that you mentioned that experience. So, John Ellen, since you kind of mentioned that you didn't realize until like a later time that you were kind of the only black man in certain spaces, what do you feel like was that moment for you where either you realized you needed to carry yourself differently or like, dang, I'm being treated differently? If you had that experience.
I'd say it probably started, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I'm working at a church, and this church is predominantly white. And when I say predominantly white, I believe there were maybe five black people there. Out of those five, four of them were in the choir, and I'm having a discussion. I forget which black man shooting this was, but we were talking about it, and then I was saying, now we're kind of concerned that if I go out to the store, if I want to go to, I have an incredible sweet tooth. So, I'm saying, if I just want to go out and get some ice cream at midnight, we're worried if, I'm going to get pulled over and then shot. Or, if I'm going to get pulled over by the cops and they're just going to see me as a threat, then the next thing you know, something else bad is happening. And then someone in the choir was like, well, not you, John Allen. And that's when the light bulb went off. It was like, yeah, that's because you've had the opportunity to get to know me. Mm-hmm. So you've had a chance to get past seeing the color of my skin because of how hard I tried to do that. And there's someone who would see me going to Walmart in the middle of the night in basketball shorts and, this T-shirt that I really should have thrown away years ago, to get some ice cream, and I'm rushing, you know, because I don't know, I just want to get back before my other cartoons come on. And now, you know, because I'm rushing, you're thinking, oh, he's running after me, and the next thing you know, boom, boom, I'm on the news as R.I.P. Another black man. Because they did not know me. They didn't realize I just had a sweet tooth, or maybe my wife just wanted some Doritos that night, or who knows, maybe I was running out of Enfamil and I had to get some more for my baby before she woke up in the morning. We don't know, but no one knows the story. And when it comes to, that's when I realized that when it comes to being black, they don't care about the story unless you are pushing it on someone. Later on, in life, 2020 to be exact, and that's when a lot of everything hit the fan for everyone. I'm a musician. I'm working at another church, directing the music, and it's a prominent, old, big white church in Houston, and I wear a Black Lives Matter mask to the service, which was being recorded, but there were some people in attendance. And not 2 minutes before it was time for the service to start, the pastor asks me to remove my mask, along with another another choir member who.
Why are we all getting
mask,
nervous?
for this whole because it's this is also the Sunday before election in 2020. So the other person, who happened to be white, had a mask on that said justice. And before the pastor came up, someone else came up, a deacon I suppose, and asked us to take them off because, quote, we don't know what could be a stumbling block to another member, end quote. I said, well, no, I will not at your request. Would you like to have the pastor come talk to me? He does. He comes with 2 masks that have the church's emblem on them and says, put them on. I say I disagree with this, but I will do it today. I have a meeting with him the next day, to which I ask him why. And he says it was a political statement and that I knew what I was doing. I was making a statement, and I knew exactly what I was doing because of the platform that I was on. And to which I told him what I was doing was letting him know that I felt comfortable enough and I thought I was safe enough to be the black man that I am in this environment. I now know that I'm not. As far as the justice mask, there is a Bible verse that says that the Lord requires of us to seek justice and love kindness and walk humbly with our God. Therefore, there should have been no problem at all or any political message associated with that. But as a Christian, we should have quickly gone to that verse in Malachi. That did not happen in either case. The further we went on with this conversation, it led me to resign. And it was completely my decision because I cannot continue to worship in the same congregation of people who believe that I should not be the black person that I am, nor can I say and express that my life matters just as much as anyone else's. I would not have been able to live there with integrity and still be the head of my house as a husband and a father. Could not have done it. So that was that situation. Both of those being very stark moments when I realized, wow, I am black. And I am viewed as black. And this is what one of the lenses of viewing black people is. It's important for us to be seen and not heard. And what we are seen doing from the grander scheme must already be acceptable, or otherwise we shouldn't do it at all. Is it okay if I switch the
Go ahead.
sense just a little bit? I think another part of recognizing being black is just all of the good things. Once you realize just how impactful blackness has had on not just America. Well, let's go back. America has an incredible, the United States of America has an incredible impact and has had an incredible, undeniable impact on Western society and the globe. And blackness has impacted undeniably everything to the core that is American. Therefore, the world has been influenced and directed by blackness. Not just in our music, not just in our sports, in science, in our food, in our mathematics, in our language. All of these things root back to something black and significant in that being black. And knowing that gives me, it's not even consolation, that stifles that flame of my caution in my blackness, and it fuels the flame of my honor of being black. Therefore, and I say honor and choose not pride, because pride can have you fall, but I recognize that it is an honor to be black, and I wear that proudly. Because there is not a single song on the radio to this day. I am a musician. I have a master's degree in music. There is not a single song on the radio today that was not influenced by a black chord or a black rhythm. All of the food that we eat here has some type of influence of black culture. The clothes we are wearing right now mainly are made of cotton. The cotton gin was created by a black man. The economy of the United States of America was built upon the work and labor of black people that never, to this day, or their descendants, got what they deserved from that work. Nothing has not been touched. Nothing good has not been touched by the black hand. Yet, so many people want to grasp onto this idea that the black hand only touches what is bad. And then, if you want to get poetic with it, the richest soil is darker. Nobody wants to plant their roses into some pure white sand. I'm not trying to be racist. I'm not trying to be racial. I'm being very honorable in my blackness. But I know that if you've got some good, rich, black soil, that's where that rose bush is going to flourish. I am good, rich, black soil. And if you want to put your racist, shit on top of it, I'm just going to mix it in to be manure.
Okay.
That's all I got for that.
Well, there you go.
Well, I'm glad you said it, John Allen.
As say it, because it's all about keeping it real in this podcast.
Yes, I love it.
I want to add one tiny thing to what John Allen said because it brought something up. I actually had a print shop at one point in time, and I made a shirt on there, and it literally said at the top, Black Creations. It said Modern Mathematics, and then it said, oh, and soap. You're welcome.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, put that in your racial pipe and smoke it. Light up. That's not true. Google it.
You know what I think we need, Ashley? I think we need a part 2 because this is too live.
It is. This is good.
What you think?
This is
This
good.
is real good. This is real good. And we just hitting the tip of the iceberg. So
Sure.
before we wrap up for our part 1 of this, it might be part 5 because we got a lot to cover. We
We do got a lot to cover.
We got a lot to cover. But y'all done talked to us about the raggedy people at church. You done made me not want to have a blizzard at Dairy Queen.
The raggedy people at Dairy Queen.
It's a lot. It's a lot for me to process.
They done messed up our Jesus and our ice cream. God dog.
Yo, I
I'm in a
can't have no
chokehold.
Jesus. I can't have no milkshake. Ain't nothing good left in life, bro. Nothing.
I'm in a chokehold, and I don't like it.
Okay.
So why don't you give some of our listeners some of our numbers, because we did really talk a lot about like really the impact of having these really hard expectations like on black men, and I think it's so important that we talk about having these numbers that are available for our listeners that are struggling like with mental health and like the depression that comes
Yeah.
with having to meet these impossible expectations.
Yeah. So I did some digging, and it's amazing how there's actually a lot of resources out there for black men.
I love
I
that.
was really surprised because
Me
a lot of the
too.
times it's focused on women and children. Our men need support too, y'all. They need
Yes.
support.
Yes.
So one of the things, if if as a black man you are looking for support, you are wanting to find a therapist. There's Psychology Today. You could go on there and find a therapist specifically for black men. There's also therapy for black men.org, I believe, or .com, and they primarily have therapists for black men that are seeking therapy. You also have Beam, which is the Black Emotional and Mental Health, and they do trainings. They're an organization that does training and have supports in place for the black community, but they specifically have a group called Masculinity Reimagine, and it teaches black men skills, and they get training in different things, and they also have a support group for black men. So if you ever feel
That's
like,
really
hey,
cool.
you need a safe space to have these conversations, they offer that. So that's just
I
some
love that.
information. And there's also um, Black Men Heal. They also provide therapy services for black men as well, and you can get like 8 sessions free, I
Wow.
believe. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So
I
there's
like
a
it.
lot of good stuff out there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Nice. And so what are our regular numbers that I don't ever have pulled up on my screen?
So our regular numbers, if you are in crisis and you really need to talk to somebody, please call 911 if it's an emergency. But also there's the National Suicide Line, and you can call them at 1-800-273-8255. And then if you're in Georgia, there's the Georgia Crisis and Access Line, and you can call them at 1-800-715-4225. But if you're in Houston, Texas,
You got me.
you can call 832-416-1177. And if you don't feel like calling, but you want to text, you can text NAMI, NAMI, to 741-741 to talk to a trained crisis counselor. So there's the
Wonderful.
numbers.
There we go. Well, y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed this conversation, and please
Yeah.
come on back, because we
Yeah.
got some parts that we need to
Yes.
finish up here.
Yeah.
So remember to also follow us on Instagram at Two Therapists Pod. We
Yes.
have new videos dropping every week. If you need help, rewind this on back and find the numbers again. And we will see you guys next. Well, we won't see you. You'll see us. But we'll be back next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.